What do you get when a skirt-chasing Yankee in high school doesn't grow up and gets a job in education? You get great teacher Onizuka, GTO, first publishing in Shonen Weekly in December 1996, and was actually published in Tokyo Pop. Do you remember Tokyo Pop? The good old days of weebhood, going to the bookstore and picking up the weekly magazine to read the new chapter. GTO is a pervy slice-of-life comedy about the title character Eikichi Onizuka, as he tries to win over his class who have made it their mission to get him removed from the school, dealing with the frustrations of a balding vice principal, the occasional biker thug from his youth, and his own teaching methods, which, let's be real, are pretty stupid. There's also his love interest and fellow teacher Azusa, that he's constantly trying to romance. The manga ran from December of 1996 until January of 2002 and amassed 208 chapters and 25 volumes. It garnered 43 episodes of anime from June of 99 to September of 2000 and 12-episode live-action TV drama from July to September of 1998. With over 63,000 votes on the manga, rating it an 8.8, and over 393,000 votes on the anime, rating it a 8.6, people like GTO. They really like GTO. The anime was made by Studio Pierrot, whom you may know from their other works. Not even going to try and dress this in sarcasm or jokes. Naruto, Bleach, Boruto, Tokyo Ghoul, Black Clover, Yu Yu Hakusho, Twin Star Exorcist, Kingdom, 12 Kingdoms, Urusei Yatsura, and dozens of other series since their founding in '79. They do work. Doesn't matter what you think about the series they make, you can't deny they've made some big names. And clearly people like GTO, but why? I mean, it's a slice-of-life sex drama comedy, and it doesn't really have a major narrative it follows that's overly deep. It's just same shit, different day, and his writer died just from the ridiculousness of the characters. And oh boy are their characters. Eikichi Onizuka is no hero, or even a good character. He's not even an anti-hero. He's basically just a throwaway thug some big bad evil guy would use as cannon fodder, but given a leading role. He's 22, looks like a Yankee with his blonde hair, cheated his way through a trash-tier university, and can't even get a decent job. He's also still a cherry boy, which plays into his skirt chasing. His one strong point is his physical prowess. He can bench 330 pounds. He's a second dan black belt in karate and claims to perform 500 push-ups, 1,000 pull-ups, and 200 squats every day, which is probably a load of shit. But I'd believe he does a fraction of that to keep himself in shape. It's implied that he's basically retarded, and while his experience taming a rowdy gang of street thugs was going to be used for controlling his class, his goals change upon meeting Nanako Mizuki, his new focus being trying to help his students solve their personal problems instead. You don't have to be a good character to be a good man. But because he missed his chance to take the civil service exam for public teachers, he can't get a job at a public school, but he can still be hired by private ones. By some miracle, he's hired by Holy Forest Academy, a high-end, high-tuition private school, and is given the class Year 3, Room 4. The catch? Not only does the vice principal, Uchiyamada Hiroshi, absolutely loathe Onizuka, but the class he's been given is so brutal in their bullying and harassment tactics that several teachers have all quit on them already, and that's the backbone of the story. Onizuka connecting with and helping his students. The show doesn't really start until the second episode where he gets his kinda permanent teaching job. A kid in his class, Yoshikawa, is having trouble with bullying. He tries to Alt F4 only to be saved by Onizuka, which kicks off a recurring gag of the show in the form of the vice principal's car, followed by some Photoshop shenanigans, and the problems present themselves from there. More bullying, single motherhood, more bullying, illicit relationships, the vice principal's car being totaled, stolen, or otherwise messed with, more bullying, and general pranks or bullying. Onizuka's unique teaching method is akin to tough love, oftentimes making kids either face their problems or taking accountability for their own actions. sometimes with the help of the students he's won over. A trio of girls bullying Yoshikawa, King Mama's boy, trying to keep his single mom from being romanced by Onizuka, with multiple police chases. And that's all in just the first 8 episodes, folks. A broken relationship between Tomoko and Miyabi, the vice principal's cold home life, Teshigawara, the resident math teacher, being a horrifying stalker of Azusa Fuyutsumi, and the absolutely wild Urumi Kanzaki. The gags, the jokes, the unpredictability adds much needed levity to the personal stories we get to see. Without the jokes and gags, the stories itself actually take on incredibly heavy and serious tone. Blackmail, abuse, single parenthood, more than one occasion where adults and middle schoolers get into physical fights. Yeah, Onizuka is a middle school teacher. His entire class is 14 and 15-year-olds. And while he's only a student teacher, there's an episode that ends with the other student teacher having been fired for, quote, seducing one of the students. So there's even some wood chipper behavior, which honestly shouldn't be surprising. Teaching and Disney employee are vocational hotbeds for nonces of society, but nothing is actually shown on screen. Unlike the series that would come after it, there isn't any explicit female nudity, only implied nudity. If you've been watching anime for as long as I have, then you would have seen this gradual but noticeable shift from the 90s to the 2010s, where on-screen nudity became more and more acceptable, to the point where we got full frontal minus between the legs without issue. Where back in the day you could barely even have a bath scene. I'm not complaining. I'll oogle pretty naked girls all day. It's just something I've noticed within the ecchi genre. But GTO isn't even an ecchi, though it's definitely got notes of rom-com to it. The age of the series really shows in its art direction. It bears all the style of the late 90s from whence it came. But the art really is just the weakest part of the series, while the content itself is evergreen, always being relevant and being a thing that influences and inspires series that come after it. Some of the shots with more angled characters just look weird, and the artifacting you'll see is due to how the series was recorded. AV tech was very, very different before Y2K, and a lot of good series that came out around then suffer from the same issues. This could have been mitigated with an HD version, but unlike Cowboy Bebop or Evangelion, both of which also came out around the same time frame, GTO is one of those series that wasn't really popular enough to get re-releases in a better quality. But on the bright side, that means it's primed for a reboot, and with the state of anime reboots, it's mostly been big hits instead of misses. Look what happens when you respect and honor the source material and the fans. You get more of the same, in a higher quality. The fans are happy, and the company makes money. Sucks to be Hollywood. But speaking of Cowboy Bebop, it had been so long since I last watched GTO that I forgot Steve Blum voiced Onizuka.
You're a fine one to talk, you Weasley bastard. You inflict verbal abuse that's twice as damaging as anything they could dish out. How do you do that and still call yourself a teacher?
Yeah, Spike Spiegel and Onizuka are the same English VA. That's probably what led to the show's early popularity, but clearly it wasn't a lasting thing. Or maybe it was the soft ecchi content and Onizuka's bare ass that caused the show's decline in fandom longevity. But the English dub has some very strong names behind it besides Blum. Wendy Lee, Michelle Ruff, Kirk Thornton, Tony Oliver, Felice Sampler, Bob Peppenbrook. Their voices are recognizable and will have you wide-eyed and scream inside your head, "I know that voice!" Where the art was the weak point, the sound design is absolutely the strong point. The VA work isn't perfect, but most of the time it sounds natural. Like it just belongs in the scene to the characters who are speaking, and that's actually kind of impressive for a year 99 series. A lot of other shows from the time have the kind of dubs that would build reputations for comedically bad dubbing work within the fandoms. Any series that breaks from that is by default standout. The weirdness of the series is that for all of Onizuka's ineptitude, he's blessed with a kind of charisma and indomitable body that allows him to power and swagger through every situation. It's pretty clear that he might be an idiot savant of some kind. His own students remark how he always seems to come out on top no matter what situation he finds himself in, no matter how improbable it seems for him to succeed. And that kind of charisma just makes sense with Steve Blum's voice. Onizuka's slow burn romance with Fuyutsumi adds a nice rom-com subplot, chock full of innuendos, and with the absurdity of the shifting plot and the problems of 14-year-old children, it's nice to see that the main romance sub-story is between two adults. Kind of would ruin the entire series if the title character was engaging in woodchipper behavior as well, given how prevalent lolly and shota are within the Japanese fiction industry. Yeah, it's legal, and it's protected artistic expression. Just don't goon to it. Onizuka's idiot savant nature really comes through about 1/3 of the way through the show when he has to get a perfect score on a big test to keep his job, but takes a detour to rescue a girl from a kidnapping. The girl in question being some weird abusive bint who uses her parents' authority to get grown men to lick her feet. Gross. In the course of the rescue, Onizuka beat down 6 mooks, but gets beaten up and shot at least 3 times. He makes it back to the school with a single hour left in the test, and still manages to get a perfect score through what was some measure of tampering to make it happen. But it's implied that he might have got a nearly perfect score all on his own. Episode 16 marks a major turning point for the series. Up until now, it's been pretty mild to moderate with the hijinks. But this is when Urumi Kanzaki is introduced, and her very appearance is a statement. Blonde with blue and brown heterochromatic eyes, and a personality like a bipolar badger on PCP and cocaine. She might as well be an avatar of Tsinch, with her level of Rube Goldberg. And it's probably more dangerous for Onizuka when Urumi shifts from hating him to loving him. Hers is a kind of chaos that can really only be matched by Onizuka's own brand of chaos. So that's why you would want to go watch GTO. But why wouldn't you want to watch it? Well, it's a slice of life. Some people just don't like slice of life. It's also a sitcom by nature, because that's effectively what slice of life series are, sitcoms. To that end, comedy is subjective, and that means you might not enjoy the brand of comedy GTO has to offer. Also, if you're acclimated to modern animation techniques, the visual presentation might just be a turnoff for you. Especially with how big of a difference a few years make. GTO came out in '99, and compared to Oh My Goddess, which came out 2005, the art quality is miles apart. And we know this isn't due to studio differences, since we can look at AIC's work of the same time period and see Tenchi Muyo Ryoki, Armitage, Bubblegum Crisis 2040, all from the similar time frame of the mid to late 90s, but have a very different art quality to GTO. Even within Pierrot, we can look at the difference between GTO and Hikaru no Go. There's only a 1-year difference between the two, but there's a world of difference in the art quality between them. 43 episodes is a hefty size for an anime, but if you watch it, and then you head to the manga and you're still left wanting for more, there is more. GTO has a spin-off, Paradise Lost. It published from 2014 to 2024. The entire story is an account by Onizuka himself, as he sits in prison. Why is he in prison? Well, he was transferred from the middle school section to the high school section and put in charge of Class G, which is a class full of idols and entertainers. And one by one, he regales his fellow prisoners and the prison guards with the exploits and entertainment of the things he did in the outside world as a teacher, before he eventually tells them what landed him in the slammer in the first place. You're looking at around 400 chapters of the manga, maybe more. So there is mountains more that you can read after the show is over. But I've rambled on long enough about this. I am the NBT. This has been the Noble Weeaboo. Like or don't, sub or don't. GTO is a nutty ride, and it's one worth taking. Thanks for watching.